The Horned Frogs got a win up at
Hey.
Arrowhead Stadium, 38-27 over the Kansas Jayhawks. We're going to break that down and much more on this episode of Frogs Insider. Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treebwasser, as always, breaking down the latest and greatest in TCU athletics. And thank the good Lord above, this day, this week, we get to talk about a TCU football win. And it just seems like we're going to get into it, obviously, that coming off of a win is a much better feeling than coming off of two consecutive losses that TCU lost.
Bold take, Jamie, but I can't really argue.
You know, I'm here for the bold takes. This is why people listen to us, is for the hot takes that we provide. And winning is better than losing is the hot take of the week.
Good.
We are, again, Frogs Insider Podcast presented by the Flying T Club. A big shout out to the Flying T Club, TCU's NIL collective. They support over 110 student athletes. You can go see more about them at flyingtclub.com, see how you can get involved, see the work that the FTC does with organizations in and around the city of Fort Worth, partnering student athletes with those organizations to do work for the city of Fort Worth. It's pretty great. And you can get involved in a variety of ways. So go to flyingtclub.com to see exactly how you can get involved. A big shout out to Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We are a part of the Republic of Football Network with them. The Republic of Football Network is a podcast feed that gives you shows for every D1 football program in the state of Texas, all in one stream. So if you just search Republic of Football Network wherever you get your podcasts, you'll see that feed pop up. It'll have our show. It'll have shows for Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, but also Rice and Sam Houston State and Texas State. By the way, those last two schools played a hell of a football game this week.
Yes, they did.
Incredible game on Saturday between Sam Houston and Texas State. But you'll get all of those podcasts in the same feed. Pretty cool thing. I learn a lot just by listening to those guys. I get a good chuckle listening to the Gambling Gauchos Tech podcast. It's a really cool feed. If you just want the Frogs Insider stuff, we have our separate feed as well. We do a couple more episodes a week in that feed than what shows up in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football feed. So you might want to do both. Search Frogs Insider wherever you get your podcasts. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe there. We've got a ton of content on that site as well. And we're closing in on 700 subscribers, which is pretty stinking cool. Melissa, I have a proposal for you, by the way, regarding...
Generally, these proposals do not go well, but
No,
okay.
this is good. This is going to be great. You're going to love it.
Okay.
When we get to 1,000 subscribers on the channel, what if we're obviously going to do some sort of challenge.
Sure.
Maybe some other things as well, fun stuff.
Yeah.
What if we chose what the other person had to do for the 1,000 subscriber challenge? Like, you can pick whatever you want. I'll pick what I want.
Okay.
All I'm saying is Clark. People know Clark Rucker, right?
Everyone knows Clark. Yeah.
He sent me a message this week with an item that I think would be excellent for you. He didn't say, "Oh, Melissa should do this." He said, "You should do this." But I'm thinking, Melissa should do this.
This would be better for me.
It's not spicy. I will say that it is not a spice-related challenge.
Okay. I mean, I'm not afraid of spice. I'm definitely afraid of the unknown. Next time I am hanging out with Clark down on the sidelines, I'm gonna tell him. I'm just gonna ask him, "What have you done, good sir? What have you done?"
Clark, if you're listening, you can show her our conversation, because nowhere in it did I say, "Ooh, this would be something great for me to make Melissa do," and nor did he suggest that. This is just
both of you guys
he gave me
are
an idea, and now I'm running with it full bore.
You're both successful people for a reason, and it's because you know better than to put things in writing. No paper trails. No paper trails.
No paper trails. No paper trails.
No, I'm down. You know what I might do, though?
What's that?
I may open it up to a Twitter poll.
Oh, God.
So I feel like we could really get this off the rails. I see no reason that this will go poorly for either of us. So, yeah, I'm down. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the season. I feel like we can get to 1,000. Should we make it end of October? Think we can get to 1,000 by hoop season.
So what are we at? Let me double check right now. Let me see what we're at.
Yeah, we're just shy of 700. We've got a lot of in-state rivalry games coming up. We've got Houston, we've got Utah, we've got Texas Tech. Those are games that people should be.
680 as of this recording.
Okay, 1,000.
So
that's 320.
320 more.
Yeah.
And it's the last day of September, the day that people are listening to this. the full month of October. So by Halloween, get 1,000 subscribers on the channel.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
I mean, we're probably going to end up doing it no matter when we get to 1,000, but I like to give the people goals.
All right, let's give the listener the goal then. 1,000 subscribers by Halloween, and we will select a challenge for. I will select a challenge for Melissa to do. Melissa will probably do a Twitter poll.
I'll do it this way. If we get to 1,000 by Halloween, I will do a Twitter poll for you.
Oh.
Otherwise, if we don't get it by Halloween, then I'm going to just select it. But if the people want to say get us to 1,000 by Halloween,
my excitement about this, as soon as you suggested Twitter poll.
went down. Just
immediately switched to fear.
We'll put some guidelines on it. Nothing that changes your appearance permanently. The first thing I want to do is make you shave your beard, but I'm not going to do that to you because I've seen the photos from your undergrad years, and I'm not going to send you down that dark path again.
If the beard shave is what gets us to 1,000 subscribers, the beard shave is what gets us to 1,000 subscribers. But we'll. I mean, hey, if you're gonna give it,
put it on the poll.
Let it be the fan poll.
Yeah. As long as I can make it to work the next day, I'm down for pretty much anything. So.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to give too many things away. It's not a spice-related food challenge, but it is a food challenge.
Okay, perfect, good. I like it. Thanks, Clark. As per always, thank you for everything you do for TCU and Frogs Insider.
But seriously, Clark does a lot for
TCU.
TCU.
We do love Clark.
Yeah,
that's why I will say yes because. Clark's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's great. Okay, so Melissa, we do have stuff to talk about beyond just the YouTube channel. Everybody go subscribe. Cool. 1,000 people by Halloween. Apparently that's the goal. Love to see it. Melissa, there was a football game on Saturday. TCU won it. Breaking news. Pretty great. 38-27 win over Kansas. Let's do this because I want to talk a little bit about putting this game into some perspective. Mm-hmm. But I want to also just take time to give some people their flowers because it was really, despite some of the mistakes, I think Sonny put it really well in postgame to say that was just a hard-fought, complete team effort win.
Well, and over
Kansas.
Yes, there were mistakes, and yes, those are things that need to be cleaned up. But at the end of the day, this team has not overcome adversity for 2 straight weeks, and on Saturday they absolutely overcame adversity. And I think the thing we've been wanting to see since the beginning of last year is that heart, that fight, that unwillingness to surrender and give up when you are in a position where you can still win. And we saw that Saturday. So yeah, we absolutely can put the caveats in the perspective. All those things are important to remember, but we can also take a moment and just celebrate the fact that TCU went out and executed when they needed to and played well for the majority of the game in all 3 phases.
Yes, they really did. They really did. The turnovers were a problem.
Sure.
3 turnovers to just 1 from Kansas. It's not often that you win a football game when you lose the turnover margin like that. But realistically, I mean, Josh Hoover, another game with over 300 passing yards. Jack Bech, another game with over 100 receiving yards, 2 more receiving touchdowns. Eric McAlister made a fantastic play with the ball in his hands to score a 59-yard touchdown. The running game,
looked
Melissa,
great.
We saw it. It
exists.
Pretty great. Jeremy Payne probably going to get some more snaps from here on out.
I think so.
Cam Cook looks really good in the fourth quarter when TCU went into kill clock mode and burned 6 minutes of the fourth quarter on one drive.
The fact that TCU did a 6-minute drive when they needed to.
Yeah, that's
that alone.
One of the things, that's one of the things. You know, we got to talk to Jack Bech a little bit in the middle of the week and leading into this game. And one of the things that I asked him was, you know, the offensive passing game has been really good so far this year, but what are some ways that you think the offense needs to improve? He mentions the running game. He said it's going to be really important to be able to run more when we need to run to kill clock. He referred to the UCF game, not overtly, but he kind of hinted that the UCF game would have probably ended differently if they had been able to run the football a little bit better. And they did that on Saturday. They got a lead. They held on to the lead. And then when they were up, you know, one possession with 9 minutes left in the game, they said, okay, sorry, Kansas, but now it's time to bury you.
Yeah.
Cam Cook had 31 rushing yards on that drive. It took 6 minutes off the clock. They ended up kicking a field goal after it to go up by 11, and that was the end of the game. It was really, really nice to see TCU's offensive line block up well, for the running backs to be patient enough to hit the holes. And for there to be holes was great.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to see TCU play a balanced offensive game. Like you said, not perfect. Josh Hoover threw 2 more interceptions. Cam Cook had a fumble. But at the end of the day, the offense put up 31 points. JPR had a punt return as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good day for the offense overall.
Yeah, and I liked the fact that in the post game, Sonny specifically mentioned that, you know, when asked what was different about the running game, why did it work, and one of the things he said was they stuck with it. And I think that has been a complaint that we've seen, especially in the last 2 weeks, is they've come out firing and wanting to throw the ball, and that is where this offense has been the most successful. It makes sense. They have incredible weapons in the passing game, but they were so quick to abandon the run. And yesterday, I mean, there were 35 rushing attempts. 3 of those are Hoover. I think probably one of those potentially was a designed run, and so still 30 plus. He had the one QB draw that was. I mean, I don't want to talk about that particular play call really because I thought it was dumb, but at the end of the day, I think, is that the first time, if you don't count LIU, that TCU's attempted more than 30 rushes in a game this season? It certainly feels like it. They've been close.
I would need to go back and look.
Yeah,
but I know that was 4.3 yards per carry, which is not an overwhelming number by any stretch of the imagination. But that
comparatively,
was the best yards per carry TCU as a team has posted this year.
Yeah, and I think
2 running backs with more than 60 yards rushing. Jeremy Payne posted the longest run of the year with a 32-yard run that set up ended up in no TCU points.
Yeah.
That was the same drive where a 3rd and 10 quarterback draw was called with Josh Hoover, and then Kyle Lemmerman missed a 42-yard field goal. But 32-yard rushing attempt for Jeremy Payne. He had a couple more that reached 10, 11 yards. Cam Cook, again, getting 5-6 yards a carry in the fourth quarter. It was just a really fantastic thing to see.
Yeah. And Sonny also talked about how they finally wore an opponent down. And that's something that he's been saying since fall camp, is he thought that this line is pretty good size, that they'd have the ability to do so. But they haven't been willing to rely on that run in the fourth quarter, especially because it has struggled so much the previous 3. And I don't know what changed. I don't know if there was an onus put on the offensive coordinator to run the ball in the fourth quarter no matter what. Like, who knows what was happening behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, I think it was very intentional that TCU continued to run the ball in what was a very tight game, a game that TCU did not lead for much of. The punt return obviously was a huge momentum swing. It's something that both Hoover, Bech, and Sonny all said was something where it kind of gave some juice back into the sidelines, because a game that was very entertaining and very back and forth, it still didn't feel like there was a ton of energy until that moment, and the vibes around the TCU sideline seemed to really change after JPR housed that ball, and that you really saw the defense get fired up in a way that we haven't seen late in games the last couple of weeks. You saw a lot of energy, a lot of communication on the sideline. You saw guys like Johnny Hodges and Bud Clark and Jamel Johnson really getting after guys in a positive way on the sideline, pulling guys aside, getting in their faces, firing them up. There just seemed to be that unity and that chemistry and that specialness that everyone has been talking about. We saw that kind of come back in a way that I don't feel like we'd really seen since Stanford, maybe, for a complete game. And so, there were a lot of things that went wrong or that you'd like to see cleaned up that will need to be better to win a game, say, at Utah in a couple of weeks. But there were a lot of things that showed you, okay, this team is not going to fold in the way that we saw a year ago, that they still believe they have things to fight for. They still feel they have things to play for. They have one conference loss, and they've won a conference road game. And when you look at the chaos around this league right now, you've said it, I've said it, Jeremy said it too, that the possibility of there being multiple teams in this conference championship game with one loss is very high. A 2-loss conference championship game participant is not out of the question. And so if you're TCU, you say, hey, we checked the box, we got to win on the road. We obviously have a lot to work for, but everything we want is still in front of us if we continue to build on this in a positive way.
Fully agree with you there. And here's what we know, Melissa, is that in week 5 of the college football season, there are now only 2 Big 12 teams left that are there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
A lot that are undefeated
There are
in conference, not many
three,
undefeated
sorry,
all
six
along.
six that are undefeated in conference play, and 3 of those teams have only played 1 game.
Yeah.
Right, so it's we're so far away from
Yeah.
knowing who is going to be in a position to make that Big 12 championship game. I think also talking about the Big 12 championship game coming off of this win for TCU may be a little bit
Oh, for sure.
too
For sure.
jump to conclusions. Like they didn't figure everything out.
No.
Kansas
but,
ran the ball. Go ahead. And then
Well, I was
I'll
just gonna
skip to
say,
the next point.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm not saying this in that I think TCU is gonna make the Big 12 championships game. What I'm saying it as that if you're Sonny Dykes, if you're TCU football, you do not have to throw in the towel after what could have potentially been back-to-back bad losses. You have a lot to build on, but as every coach in history has said, you would much rather win a game and have things to work on than lose a game and have a lot of things to work on. So, yeah, I'm not ready to change my my floor for this team. My acceptable floor for this team was 7 wins. Mm-hmm. Right? I thought 8 wins would be a good season, and anything above that would mean a lot of things went right. After last week, I was questioning whether this team would make a bowl. And now you look, okay, there's still a path to 6 wins. There's still a path to 7 wins. And now maybe you have a team that believes that its big, because its goal every year is to make the Big 12 championship. You have a team that now there's no reason, and there's no reason to say our goal is off the table. Your goal is still very much on the table. And this league is chaotic in a way that who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Kansas pretty much eliminated itself yesterday. With they're
I mean, they're 0-2 in conference now. They look terrible. Their only win of the year is over Lindenwood.
Yeah,
a lot of things wrong with that team. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah. No, I don't want people to think that I'm fully on the hope train. But I think that from a program perspective, you can sell this team that it can still achieve its goals for sure. And it's not out of the question that they could. Again, there's a lot to fix, and that will segue right back into what you were about to say.
Yeah, so beating Kansas on the road is good.
Yeah.
And, we heard Sonny Dykes talk about this before the game. Kansas was a preseason top 25 team. Jalen Daniels is one of the veteran, more experienced, more talented quarterbacks in the conference. Devin Neal is one of the better running backs in the conference. Granted, I think pretty much 3/4 of the conference have claimed to saying that their running back is one of the better running backs in the league because it's just so loaded at that position. But there is Kansas in a couple of ways, and I'm not saying this to discredit the win because TCU did work hard for this win, but Kansas let TCU off the hook in a couple of different ways from a TCU defense perspective.
Sure.
The Frogs allowed almost 5 yards a carry. They gave up chunk yardage, especially in the first half. They made some really good adjustments in the second half and pretty much completely stifled Kansas in the second half. I thought it was a great defensive effort. But Kansas threw the ball as many times as they ran it on Saturday.
Insane.
34 passing attempts, 34 rushing attempts against a TCU team that had just been decimated by the running game over the past 2 weeks, giving up over 500 yards on the ground. I don't quite know why Jeff Grimes, Kansas's offensive
coordinator, is not in jail,
called the game that he called. And in his defense, Jalen Daniels missed a couple wide open throws for guys. But when you know that you have a defense on the ropes when it comes to the running game, and you have Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels, run the football, guy. Run it. And Kansas ran it with some pretty good success. I mean, they ran 4.9 yards per carry over 34 carries. Pretty good success rate on the ground. And they just went away from it at really interesting times. The most interesting time that they went away from the run. And I think that this gave TCU's defense a lot of confidence. In the third quarter, Josh Hoover throws a pick. It gets returned down to the TCU 6. I can't remember what the score was at that point, but it was a one-possession game. I think TCU had like a field goal lead or a touchdown lead. And I think it was like 24-17 at that point or something. And you're thinking, great, 6 yards. Kansas is going to run it 3 times, probably score a touchdown. They ran it the first time. TCU did a great job filling the gap. No gain. And then crosser routes. Jalen Daniels throws it in the end zone. Chaney Canada makes a great play to break up a pass. And then on third down, Kansas runs a screen. Marcus Steele absolutely blows it up, swats the pass down, and Kansas has to kick a field goal. That gave, I think, TCU a lot of confidence going through the remainder of the game. I mean, Johnny Hodges said as much.
Yeah.
That it gave them a good spark for the remainder of the football game. And so I think there were some ways where Kansas probably, if they had an opportunity to do it over, would do it differently. But at the same time, defensively, especially in the second half, TCU executed really well. And you can only execute against what the other team is doing. And Jeff Grimes decided that they were going to throw the football, even though it wasn't more than a one-possession game until the last 5 minutes of the football game. And so I guess shout out to Jeff Grimes, because I think that he was a detriment to Kansas in that football game, and TCU took advantage of it. And that's what you got to do to win football games, and TCU did that on Saturday.
Well, and that's been Kansas fans' complaint this whole season is you have a quarterback who's struggling throwing the football. You have an elite running game and an elite running quarterback who's potentially healthy, and you don't play to your strength. And again, especially against a team that has shown to be very soft against the run. So yes, thank you to Kansas. Also, I don't know if maybe that had to do, one of the things Johnny Hodges talked about in the post game was that they shrank their playbook a little bit, and
he did mention that,
and that they did have an extra. And it's really hard to see from field level, and I only watched about a quarter in the press box. But he said that they brought an extra guy down into the box, that they were playing a little bit more loaded in the box. And I wonder if Jeff Grimes just overthought it. And saw that and made the adjustment to call more passing plays. Maybe there were more audibles by Jalen Daniels. I mean, this is a guy who's been in the program a long time. I don't know if he has that freedom. But if Jeff Grimes was trying to play chess, I could see where they would see more opportunities to pass. But at the end of the day, you don't start playing chess until checker stops working, and they never committed to doing what they do really, really well. And it's unfortunate if you're a Kansas fan, especially what I think for both teams is, as much as you can call a September game a must-win game, it felt very much like a must-win game for both programs. So again, thank you, Jeff Grimes. I can say this now that TCU has played it, but what has happened to Jalen Daniels this season is a travesty. He's one of the most exciting and fun players to watch in college football. He seems like a truly stand-up guy, and I want to see him healthy, and I want to see him contributing, and I don't want to see him benched. And it feels like Kansas is on that road, but that's their problem, not ours. And we've got a quarterback who is still learning and still growing, and at times looks like a guy who does not have a full season of starts under his belt yet. But I think the one thing we know about Josh is that he is committed to working on the things that cause him to make those mistakes, to make those bad reads, to not be on the same page with his wide receivers. And he always takes accountability, and his teammates have not lost any faith in him, and they believe in him. No matter, he could throw 5 first half interceptions, and if they needed a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, I think both his coaches and his teammates would believe in him to throw the football and get them down the field.
I agree with that. Fully agree with that. 2 things on what you said about the adjustments in playing chess. TCU allowed checkers to continue working for SMU throughout all 4 quarters of last week's game. Rhett Lashley mentioned it in his post game that he was surprised TCU never brought their safeties down to the box. I think he said it 2 or 3 times in his post game press conference. So with that in mind, I was keeping track of TCU loading the box or not loading the box. They still ran a pretty light box for the majority of the game, but there were more bodies near the box, not necessarily in it. Cooper McDonald still tends to line up very oddly to me, and I don't know. I need to get some clarification on why the stud position, because it's not just Cooper. That's unfair. It's that stud role doesn't line up closer to the line of scrimmage, because it feels like he's almost out there trying to show that he's like some sort of zone for the slot or something. When I don't know, maybe be a little closer to line. But so maybe there was a little bit of gamesmanship there from TCU that got in Jeff Grimes' head. I hope so, because that means that TCU is adjusting to what their weakness has been the last 2 weeks. The first 2 drives of the game, Kansas scored a touchdown on each drive. 14 of their 27 points came on those first 2 drives. Over the next 10 drives, TCU only allowed 13 points to be scored. So fantastic adjustments, fantastic effort after those first 2 drives. I thought they did really well. And Melissa, we saw something for the first time this week against Kansas, and that was Andy Avalos on the sideline versus in the booth. He was in the booth, I believe, for the first half, came down after halftime and was on the sideline calling plays from the sideline. And I think that that's going to make a positive difference for this defense, and here's why. We talked, you and I, not just on the show, but almost every day that we got to go out and watch fall camp, about how hands-on Andy Avalos is. Mm-hmm. He, whether it's an individual drill, one-on-ones, or team, he is literally putting hands on guys, adjusting them, moving them, showing them technique, telling them where to be, reminding them where to be. And I think TCU's defense benefited from his presence on the sideline in the second half because he could be that style of hands-on coach. It's so much more difficult to do that from a booth, 100 yards away. And so I wonder if we see that continue this week against Houston. It'll be interesting to kind of track, but I think TCU's defense was better off with Avalos on the sideline versus in the booth on Saturday.
I think it absolutely made a difference. And, we can point to a lot of things, but TCU, for, the first time in a competitive game, I thought their defense performed better in the second half than it did in the first. And I think that's a fair statement. And so did Avalos have something to do with that? Did adjustments have something to do with that? I mean, we won't know what the magic formula was, but if something showed improvement, you would expect it to stick with it. And I'm sure somebody or you are going to ask Sonny about that during his press conference, whichever day that's held this week. It's interesting because one of the things, when we learned that Avalos was going to call plays from the booth, I think we asked multiple players on the defensive side of the ball if that would have a negative impact. And they all kind of said, no, my position coach is down there. That's all that matters. That's who I talk to anyways. But when you're learning a new system, when you're changing pretty much how you line up completely, there is absolutely benefit to having the architect, down there while the thing is being built. And TCU is still very much building this defense. You're not going to install a defense in fall camp and be running it perfectly the first month of the season. And so you want to see improvement week to week. And this is the first time in 3 weeks we've seen improvement on that side of the ball. And so I think if that was effective, then I'm hoping that continues Friday night.
It's also the let me double check. I'm checking. Please hold.
I should be vamping while you're checking.
No, you're good. Third time in 5 games, Melissa, that TCU has had multiple receivers with over 100 yards receiving.
Yeah. Because they did against Stanford.
They did it against SMU, and they did it against Kansas. And the last 2 games, so SMU and Kansas, it's been Jack Bech and Eric McAlister.
Yeah.
Jack Bech, 10 more catches, 130
Career high 10 catches.
2 more touchdowns. He's now 3rd in the country in receiving yards with over 640 through the first 5 games of the year. He's on pace for bigly numbers. I know he's your favorite player on the roster.
Yes,
I know you love talking to him at media days.
I do.
We've seen him do some really incredible things. Is the most incredible thing the fact that 9 Jayhawks were trying to tackle him at one point and he didn't even go to the ground after the whistle blew?
No. That guy, he's not a small receiver. He's not a wiry receiver, but he's not even Savion Williams, right? He's not the biggest dude out there. But he has a toughness and a strength, both physically and of spirit, that I think he has that special intangibles that you don't often see in college players that just tell you that this guy is going to set that example by what he says and what he does. And I had posted pictures on my Twitter account of him surrounded by 9. Started with 8, and then it was 9, and you just saw the little peeking of a white helmet, which was hard to tell because both teams were wearing white helmets, but just this little glimmer of white with a frog on it that was Jack in the middle of literally 9 Jayhawks. And like you said, he did not go down in that moment. He's converted, again, I don't have the stats, but I just think I can safely assume he's had more 3rd down catches than anybody else on the roster. That's who Hoover is looking for in those big moments. It's JPR's had a couple of those plays too, and Savion's had a couple of those plays, but Jack is the guy. If it's 3rd and 11, I'm still relatively confident that if that ball's going to Jack Bech, they're gonna turn it into a first down because we've seen him do it multiple times this season. And the first touchdown he scored. I mean, he took contact at the point of attack. He was able to run away from guys. The second was a little bit more on a shorter play, and he just kind of like flung his body across the goal line. I mean, he's just doing really, really incredible things. And talked in the post game about just the mentality that wide receiver group has and the toughness and physicality they want to play with. And it's obviously TCU doesn't have 3 wins without Jack Bech. I mean, I think that's absolutely goes without saying.
Absolutely. You mentioned third downs. TCU only had 11 third down situations on Saturday, which is something that
right.
I think we had talked about on a previous episode. Because you're right. Josh Hoover had been bailing this team out in third down and long quite often through the first quarter of the season, through the first third of the season. And he didn't really have to do that a ton against Kansas. There were a few instances where it was 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and like you said, he found Bech or he found McAlister or he found Savion, and they got it done. But they didn't really have to do that a whole ton on third down in this game. Kansas, on the other hand,
it's amazing that when the running game is a little bit more effective, you end up with less third and longs, right?
Crazy.
Go figure, right?
It's staggering, that information. Kansas, on the other hand, and Sonny mentioned this in his midweek conference last week, he said, we have to be much better on first and second down, because Kansas is going to run it a lot, even when it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, to set up fourth down. They're really aggressive.
3rd and 9.
3rd and 13, 3rd and 16.
Yeah.
They were in third down situations 17 times.
Wow.
They converted 9 of them, which is, you want
Good.
a few less than that. They converted a few third and longs. But I think that's an indicator of TCU being a little bit more successful as a defense on early downs.
Yeah.
And so, you look at some stuff, you parse out stats like that, and you say, okay, it does feel like this defense took a really good step forward against a team that has some really talented players. Luke Grimm, very talented receiver, stepped out of bounds before that touchdown. I don't know how that wasn't overturned.
Wasn't a fumble either, but that's okay.
Whatever. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
As Lance Leipold is learning in the life of the Big 12, he was very upset with the officials after Saturday and during the game. Melissa, here's a note for you as well. And actually, I want to give you this note, but let's talk about something you've already mentioned first. John Paul Richardson, 89-yard punt return touchdown, 4th longest punt return touchdown in TCU history. So, he's up there with the Jeremy Curleys and the Jalen Ragers and the Darius Davises now with his punt return shenanigans. Let's talk about the block that set him up.
Yes.
Because that was true freshman Caden McFadden chasing down one of the gunners, hip checking him, side screening him, not a block in the back like Kansas fans wanted to say. Just a fantastic block to break JPR free. And then he dipped, dived all the way down the field, 89 yards for a punt return touchdown.
Well, and what I loved about that play and that recognition from a true freshman was his complete and total awareness in that moment to contort his body to make sure that it was not a full-on block. It was I need to hip check this dude or I'm going to get a flag. And so you don't see that with freshmen on special teams very often, if at all. And so that was super impressive. JP gave him a ton of credit after the game, shouted him out. I also love too, and what I thought was really cool, because again, you want to see that your coaching staff is properly preparing their team. And JP said it and Sonny said it. They saw something in watching film that made them think that they could have a lot of success returning the football against Kansas special teams. And they called that middle return because they believed that that's how they were going to be able to get a big chunk of yardage. And then, like you said, JP just dipped and dove and rolled. And I mean, he was absolutely just the nimbleness and the quickness that he showed, the cutting on a dime and just the avoidance of the big hit, I thought was super impressive. So that was fun. It was a huge momentum swinger, but it's really, really great, I'm sure, as a coach and as a team, when you identify something in preparation, the opportunity comes and you executed that perfectly. That was really, really encouraging.
Absolutely it was. TCU is now 3-0 this year when they have a horned frog on their helmet.
Oh God, we're going to do this.
And they are 0-2 when they don't.
Okay. All right.
I'm just going to point that out. Jeremy Payne finished as TCU's leading rusher. He had 8 carries for 67 yards. Did a great job in the passing game. Caught one pass for 10 yards. Was in the right spot, and also was a fantastic blocker on a
Yeah.
pass to John Paul Richardson that got a first down. I think it was like a 16, 17-yard gain for TCU, where Payne was the lead blocker as well. I know that a lot of times fans want to look at rushing stats only to talk about running backs. But I think that holistically, when you look at the game that Jeremy Payne played on Saturday, he fully earned more playing time from this coaching staff.
100%. And they've talked about his maturity since he stepped foot on campus and how he's not your typical freshman, and the fact that he knows how to study, he knows how to prepare, he knows how to execute, and he's a kid that works really hard and wants to get better. And a guy, he's another guy that JP couldn't talk enough about. They're from the same hometown, which is really cool. So I think you have to give Jeremy Payne more opportunities. We have to say it, like, Cam, this was the most comfortable he's looked in hitting the hole that's supposed to be there for him. And a lot of credit goes to the offensive line for creating those holes in a timely fashion. But Cam really hit that hole, accelerated through contact, ran through guys, ran by guys, jumped over guys. He played great. And so this is not Jeremy Payne needs to usurp Cam Cook, but that combination was so effective and so flexible, and the different things that you can do with the offense when those guys are on the field, that I would be shocked if we don't get a heavy dose of Jeremy Payne Friday night, and we deserve that. I think that if each of those guys, are getting, I got to look at what the touches were. Cam had 15 rushing attempts, Jeremy had 8, and then like you mentioned, Cam had 3 targets in the passing game, made 3 receptions, and pick up a lot of yardage, and then Jeremy had 1. I think that's about what you want to see, that 15 and 8, 15 and 10, maybe even a few more touches for both of those guys. But I think those need to be the 2 that you are focusing on in the run game. And when you look at, using the backs in the passing game, those are the guys I want to see on the field right now.
A couple other guys that got opportunities to start in this game. Ben Taylor Whitfield got the start at right tackle. There was a change that, Sonny indicated there would be a change along the offensive line. And that was one of the big changes. We're seeing a lot more Remington Strickland at right guard these last couple of games. And then on the defensive line, you saw Marcus Steele get a start as well. And he made a couple of really good impact plays in this football game. So it got to the point after that 2-2 start where, it's something that you like to see, I think, from your coaching staff, to say, hey, what we're doing right now isn't working. Beyond just how are we going to game plan and strategize, let's talk personnel, and let's make sure that we're putting the best players on the field, giving them a chance to be successful. And it's very clear that TCU took these last 2 losses hard and came to the drawing board with an open mind this week ahead of the Kansas game to put a good foot forward and take a good step in the right direction. Again, Kansas is now 1-4 after being a preseason top 25 team. Their only win is over their FCS opponent. I don't know when they're going to right the ship.
Yeah.
I don't know what this win is going to end up looking like for TCU when the season is all said and done. But this is a game where you had your back against the wall. You had to get it done, and TCU did. And now they're 3-2, 1-1 in the Big 12. They got a short week of preparation before a very bad Houston team comes to Fort Worth. Houston hasn't scored in 8 quarters of football.
Yeah. It's when I did the Houston preview, he gave me the minute total, and it was like 130 something minutes going back to the last time they scored, I think, in the Rice game. So more than 2 full games without a touchdown. But the thing, like, this is a bad Houston team. This is a 10-point spread that the Houston that Ryan that from GoCoug said was probably too low. But this is a team that is going to test you with their run offense. They're not a great running offense, but that's what they do, and that's the only thing they can do. And so for TCU to continue to build on that, this is an opportunity to keep doing what they were doing, especially in the second half against Kansas, against a worse opponent, and hopefully have more success before you go up and play a Utah team that, you get a bye week, and then you've got a Utah team that might be without its quarterback and is probably going to try to run the ball down your throat as well.
Yeah, this is just get to 4-2. You got to 3-2, get to 4-2, get to your bye week, middle of the season, exactly on pace for where I said this team would end up at 8-4, and just one game at a time. Houston is the next team on the schedule. Go and take care of business. That's really all you can do at this point. I think that a lot of the concerns we had about this football team were alleviated on Saturday. There are still some big questions that remain. But I think that was a win that brought a lot of TCU fans back from the edge.
Yeah.
Truly.
You had to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of sentence. And they had an opportunity to let it get away from them, and they bowed up. And that is something that gives, that as a fan, you have hope. As someone covering the team, you start to say, okay, we've been told what a special group of guys this is. We needed to see it when it mattered, and we saw it Saturday. So like you said, this does not put us on the jump on the track. We're going to Arlington, but this goes, okay, the season isn't done yet. We can stay invested. I have hope, and I'm ready to be hurt again. Like that's all you can ask for as a fan, right? Like
Absolutely.
It sucks when the season, when you're not playing for anything and it's still September, right? And now if you're a TCU fan or you're someone that loves that team, you can sit there and say, okay, we still have stuff to play for. Let's get back to work. Let's get a win at home against a really bad team. Do not let your foot off the gas. Send a message playing Houston at home on a Friday night. And go into your bye week with a ton of good vibes and get ready for the meat grinder stretch of your schedule.
Absolutely. All right, Melissa, let's reset. This is the Frogs Insider Podcast presented by the Flying T Club. Go to flyingtclub.com to see how you get involved with TCU's NIL collective. Shout out to Dave Campbell's Texas Football and the Republic of Football Network. There was more than just football that happened this weekend.
There was.
Last week, Melissa. TCU soccer had a couple big conference games. TCU volleyball had a couple big conference matches as well. What went on over this weekend with soccer and with volleyball?
So volleyball played their first Big 12 match of the season. They welcomed in a ranked Arizona State team to Schulmeyer Arena, and this team, one thing I will say about Jason Williams and this club is they do not schedule light. This team was battle tested going into that game. They were ready to play a top 15 opponent. But Arizona State the matches were close, but at the end of the day, Arizona State just bullied them, and forced a lot of errors and just made sure that TCU volleyball did not play, to the best of its ability on that night. And I didn't get to watch a ton of the match. I tried to tune in. I was following along on the scorecaster. But that was just a kind of hey, conference play is going to be tough. It's going to be like this every week kind of game, and give credit to Arizona State, a really, really good team. And they looked like it against the Horned Frogs. On Thursday night, TCU soccer went down to Houston. I don't think they hadn't played it in Houston since like 2017. It was a very muggy night down in the Gulf, and a very slow start. I think it was scoreless at the half. I did watch pretty much all of this game, but all of the numbers are rolling together. And Caroline Kelly, your reigning Big 12 Player of the Week, once again just absolutely sparked this offense. She has been. She transferred from St. Louis University. You're always a little concerned when you jump levels, but she has been as advertised and more. Just an absolutely incredible player who does so much to get this team fired up. Cam Lancaster back on the field. That has been a huge missing piece. I was kind of thinking through it, and I don't want to say that TCU really missed her because of how well they've been playing and how well other players have stepped up into her role. But she does bring something to this team that nobody else could do. I mean, her ability, just her touch, her ability to set up teammates. The way that she finds lanes passing the ball is just so special and so unique, and she is such a problem in the box with what she can do offensively as an agent of chaos. And so she had an assist. Her, I think, first full game back on the pitch. She had another assist Sunday as TCU went down and tied Baylor. Just a really, really physically exhausting game, it looked like, for those two teams. It was hot. Again, it's the afternoon on a Sunday. Those are tough, especially in a rivalry game. Baylor got on the board first. Their first and second shot attempts came with about 30 minutes to play in the second half, and the first one was deflected, and they ended up with a kind of a rebound goal off of I can't remember who scored it, but they had, like, TCU's defense had played so incredibly well and had not even let them have a shot on goal, and then the first opportunity they get, they convert. TCU fought back, though, and Bella Diorio, another one of those absolutely amazing agents of chaos that this team has, just with her speed and her aggressiveness, got the equalizer, and the game ended with a draw. So TCU absolutely dominated possession. They dominated shots on goal. They dominated corner kicks. I mean, they dominated every facet of this game. But as Eric Bell said post game, like, sometimes you do everything right and you're lucky to get out with a tie, was basically his quote. And that's kind of how today went. Soccer is just one of those sports. So this team has yet to drop a game in Big 12 play. They do have 2 ties against Tech and Baylor, but they are playing really, really good soccer. They're playing very confidently, and their depth, I think, is going to be what makes them a real contender, not just in the Big 12, but when we get to the national tournament. So many freshmen are playing significant roles, and Eric can really kind of sub his players in and out as needed to keep people fresh, and they're going to wear down opponents as you get late into the season. So they're fun to watch. They have a bye this week, and then they head to Colorado on Saturday for another important game.
Awesome. Very cool. It seems like with the way the Big 12 is set up this year from a soccer perspective, the TCU has done pretty much everything they've needed to do through this first portion of the schedule to have an opportunity to be at or near the top of the conference come Big 12 tournament time.
Yeah. If they keep playing like they're playing, this is absolutely a top 4 seed. And this is still a team that I think has a very real chance to win the conference when it's all said and done. I would not want to play TCU in a tournament style event because of their depth.
Just when it's done, they can get it done on any given day.
Yes, and they can, and they can stack games and have the depth to stay fresh. Like, if it comes just to who's gonna be worn down more, I really like TCU's odds. So it's really gonna be fun to watch. I've never been much of a soccer fan. It's the only sport I've never played in my life. I am learning so much, but I will say I absolutely love watching this team play. And the thing I'm really learning to appreciate about soccer is I was flipping between Baylor and NFL today. There's no commercials. And you know what? You can just, for 45 minutes, you're just going to see action. And that's really, really nice. And you can walk away for 5 minutes and, you might miss something, but you probably won't. And so it's a very Sunday afternoon friendly sport to turn on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it is, for sure. Big fan of the sport. Everton, my EPL team, actually got a win this week. It's a sign of good things to come, I think.
We're happy for you.
All of
Truly.
my sports teams. Yes.
Yes, everyone's going to be successful now because of soccer.
Up the toffees. That's all I got to say. Melissa, there was another baseball scrimmage. Scrimmages are happening for baseball right now as fall camp is well underway. And they've got 3 more opportunities this week. So if you're listening to this show, you're in Fort Worth, you want to go see some baseball this fall, Thursday night, Saturday, and Sunday, they are doing more inter-squad games. They're cranking out inter-squad games right now, which is really, really fun. I went again on Sunday afternoon and took in some more baseball. And it's fair to say that the Bats have been winning the battle through the early part of fall camp. And again, I don't try to draw a ton from fall baseball just because, similar to football, you don't know what you're really looking at until the season gets underway. That's why I think a lot of our fall reports from football said, hey, this team's going to run the football really well. Turns out
there's a reason for that.
There was a reason for that. But I will say the Bats have been winning early on in the fall, at least the scrimmages that I've been to. And I think part of the reason for that is that early on, TCU's coaching strategy for their pitchers is, hey, we're going to be really fastball heavy. We're just going to throw strikes, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. It's an opportunity to get the Bats used to live pitching again. It's an opportunity to give them some good opportunities to swing the bat. As fall progresses more and more, the pitching will start to mix it up and look more like it will when the season comes around. That being said, Tommy Lepore looked pretty good in the first inning of work. Not as great in the second inning of work. His fastball was up to 94 again today. Noah Franco, TCU's two-way freshman, one of the two-way freshmen they have on campus. Trevor Baumler is another. Up to 94 with his fastball.
Jeez. A
slider in the mid-80s. His command hasn't been there the 2 times I've seen him pitch. He issued, 5 walks today. So struggling with his command. Kirk went out there, Sarlos did, while he was pitching to be a little bit closer to him to start to work through some of the mechanical things that I think he's seeing, some of the mental things, because I think once you start to miss, it's easy to keep missing.
Sure.
That's regardless of sport, right?
Yeah.
And so I still like what I've seen from him so far, just as far as velo goes and his pitch selection. But there are some really fun bats getting things rolling this fall. Not Jax Traeger, the pitcher that's been on campus for a while, but his younger brother, who's a catcher in this freshman class, could very well end up seeing a lot of starts this year behind the plate. He hit a 3-run home run today. That was an absolute moonshot off of Cole Klecker. He crushed this baseball to right center. I'm very excited to see the stats when Frogball Data tweets them out. He had a really good day at the plate. Zach Wattis had a bases loaded triple off the wall in center field. That was really fun to see. Let's see, kind of flipping through here. There are a couple other guys that had pretty good days. Cole Eaton, who's a Tennessee transfer. He was a gray shirt at Tennessee, transferred into Fort Worth this fall. He had a really good at bat. He had a double off the center field wall that drove in a pair of runs. Overall, I liked what I've seen from TCU's bats so far. I think they're balanced. They're really aggressive. We saw a couple more stolen bases today. Bill Mosiello's preaching stealing bases. He's preaching taking the extra base when a ball is in play. We're seeing a lot of that kind of old style Bill Mosiello offense. We're also seeing a lot of selective aggression. Not nearly as much first pitch swinging as we've seen the last 2 years from this team. But it is still very much, hey, if you get your pitch, give it your best shot, regardless of whether or not that pitch is the first pitch you see or the fifth pitch in the at bat.
Let me ask you a question.
Pretty cool stuff from baseball so far. Yeah.
Who is playing first base in these scrimmages?
Great question. We've seen a mixture of players. Today it was Brody Green and Isaac Cadena. Cadena being the Ohio State transfer. He's more of a utility player. He plays outfield. He plays first. He catches. He's been doing mostly first base and catching for TCU this fall. He played first base. He did really well. Brody Green had a really nice scoop on a throw from shortstop today to get an out. He looks pretty comfortable over there. Might be a good way to keep him healthy.
Yeah,
is to
I was
play
going to
more
ask
first
about
base,
his health.
less mobility. So yeah, those are the two guys that have been manning first base. We've seen Noah Franco over there a little bit on days that he's not pitching, because they want to find ways to get his bat in the lineup as well. But yeah, so it's been a mixture of Cadena, Brody Green, and Noah Franco over there at first base. Zach Wattis a little bit as well. He was in left field. He was in left field today. Because he does have some outfield experience as well. Yeah.
If you were to guess today, how many true freshmen will be playing in the field starting on opening day in the field?
In the field.
Yeah.
I mean, Sawyer Stroh-Snyder is going to be starting in the outfield somewhere.
Yeah.
That's virtually a given at this point. He had another good day at the plate. He's got an absolute laser rocket arm. I don't want to oversell. I just don't understand how this kid didn't get drafted. Like, I just don't understand. TCU is very lucky to have gotten him on campus.
Thank you, MLB.
He's going to be very fun to watch play baseball in purple and white. So he will be starting, barring some crazy stuff that happens in the next few months. I fully expect him to be a starter on this team. That's just my impression. Obviously, I'm not.
Sure.
You ask any of the coaches right now, they're going to laugh at you about if you ask him who's going to be starting.
So I'm asking you, not them. You can make bold predictions, and I don't have to hold you accountable to them.
There you go. You can.
I will.
I think
but
Sawyer Stroh-Snyder being a starter in the outfield isn't as bold of a prediction.
No,
I think him, Sam Myers, and Chase Brunson are going to be your opening day starting outfield.
That's a lot of athleticism. It's young, but that is a lot of athleticism in the outfield. Mm-hmm. That is very that feels potentially very fun.
Draw a name out of a hat of which of those three is going to be playing center. They could all play center field.
Yeah, which is also crazy.
Mm-hmm.
3 center fielders and a defensive.
Arms. Yeah. We saw Chase Brunson flash his arm a little bit last year. He's got an incredibly strong arm. Sawyer has a better arm.
Not a single one of them has probably had their 20th birthday yet either, which is very exciting.
I don't think so.
Very
Pretty
exciting
cool.
for the future. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he'll be the opening day starter, but Nolan Traeger will play a lot of catcher this year as a true freshman, so he'll be out there. I don't think. Oh, let's see. Nathaniel Stearns and Noah Franco and Mason Brassfield are all going to pitch as true freshmen this year. I'd put some good money on that happening. I don't know if any of those three will be opening day. I could see it being Klecker. I could see it being Lepore. I could see it being, I don't know. We'll probably see some Tyler Finau as a true freshman as well. He's a sidearm right-handed pitcher from Minnesota. Really good kid, tall. His fastball was up to 89 today, but he's got this. It's a true sidearm delivery. He goes fastball, changeup, curveball.
Gotta love a side armor.
And so he was 89 with the fastball, all the way down to 77 with his curveball.
Wow.
So some really good changeup and velocity there. Let's see. Trying to think of other true freshmen. What was your next question?
Well, I was also going to ask you one name I haven't heard you talk about a lot here these first couple weeks is Anthony Silva.
Mm-hmm.
How's he looking? I mean, I think we all know how important he is to this team, and having him, be the guy that we all saw as a freshman, maybe with some of the pressure off of him this fall, that he's getting back to just playing baseball.
He is getting back to just playing baseball. I wasn't there for this, but 2 Saturdays ago, apparently he barreled up a home run that was almost 110 miles an hour off the bat. And so he spent a lot of time this summer working on changing some of his swing mechanics. He didn't see the results immediately, which is why he had a pretty rough summer in the Cape.
Yeah, that's what normally happens, though, right? When you change your mechanics.
Mm-hmm. And so, when you have a kid who's as talented as him, if he has a season like he had last year where he struggled pretty significantly at the plate, he struggled as he's changing his mechanics in the fall, you kind of expect and anticipate a bounce back. I think we've seen him have really good at-bats so far. This fall, he walked twice today. He did a really good job just with understanding where the strike zone was. He flew out to right field on a ball that was in foul territory. He hit it really hard. Launch angle was not quite there. He didn't quite barrel it up like he wanted to. It went very high in the air, but ended up being a fly out. He's had a good fall. Defensively, he looks great. He's going to be a key piece of this team. If they want to have the success that they expect to have, he's going to have to be.
He has to be great. Well, I don't care who you are. I don't care how mature you are. I don't care how great of a kid you are. If you're, not yet 20 years old and everyone's telling you you're going to be a first round draft pick in September, it's got to be really hard to stay focused and stay locked in. And so maybe the best thing that happens to him for his long-term career is having to kind of go back to basics and get in that position where I'm just going to focus on being a great TCU Horned Frog this year and let things fall where they may in the draft in the summer. But if he cannot worry about that until the summer, I think that bodes well for him, and that bodes well for TCU. So, and you know what? He does get to play with his brother, and that is really freaking cool.
That is pretty cool. And Jacob's had a really nice fall so far. He's catching a lot right now as well. Had a couple really good at-bats today, put the ball in play. You like to see that from the true freshman. He had a single to left. He worked a walk. There was another one somewhere in there. He didn't only have 2 at-bats today. Oh, yeah, he did. Okay. Well, he singled and walked today. Let's see, he singled off of Lepore. So, he gave a good bat to a good pitcher.
I think it's really great how many different guys are getting the opportunity to catch in the fall. Yes. I think just having some depth at that position with guys that are not just good defensive catchers, hopefully, but also can be dangerous at the plate. I mean, that's great for keeping everybody healthy. And I think that's going to be critical to this team's success. I mean, we're all going to miss Curtis Byrne, and I think we took him for granted quite a bit, just in his dirt, like as much as he played through with all of the injury issues that he was kind of fighting through. So having a lot of young guys that are coming in and getting ready to fill in that position behind, Carson Bowen, I think is going to be really, really critical for the future.
Yeah, 100%. And TCU definitely has done a good job recruiting the catching position. Nolan Traeger he could be that guy, right? Like he's one of those kids who could come in as a true freshman and be the guy if he needed to be. But like you said, there's some good depth there, so he doesn't need to be the guy. And I think, going back to Silva and really all of these hitters, I think just what I've seen so far from Bill Mosiello, I think the relationship he's cultivating with these kids is going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
It's going to be really helpful for, when you go through those tough streaks, to have a guy that is fully on your side. I think that's going to be really good for this team.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that regard. Jamie, we have a chance to end this right at an hour, pretty much. And I know we're both playing hurt after a very long Saturday, especially for you. Got to give Jamie big props, guys, for just being. If you need someone that can drive 16 hours in a 24-hour period, Jamie Plunkett is absolutely your guy.
Hey, look, Jeremy and I got up at the crack before dawn. I was going to say the crack of dawn. Jeremy was at my house at 3:50 a.m. We hopped in the car. We drove to Arrowhead. We got there about 11:30. Parked, saw you in the press box, had a really nice lunch, watched TCU beat Kansas, hopped right back in the car, got home, dropped you off at your house at what, 3:45 in the morning?
Yeah, 3:45 a.m. It was
Easy.
great.
I was in bed by 4:30.
Yeah. I was awake the entire car ride home, as far as I know.
You weren't.
Yeah.
You were not. Jeremy was not. But that's okay. I listened to some nerdy podcast stuff late at night. And dropped you off at home. Got Jeremy back to his truck at my house at about 4:15. Got in bed at 4:30. Slept until about 10:30, and then was up and headed over to the scrimmage for baseball. So yeah, really nice little Saturday.
Yeah, not a bad way to spend a weekend, right?
Not a bad way to spend your weekend. And now we've gone over the hour mark of the show.
Dang it! It's okay. It's a good story.
It's okay. You started that at we were like 20 seconds.
Yeah, there's no chance it was going to happen anyways.
It's all good. But yes, that'll do it for this episode of the Frogs Insider Podcast presented by the Flying T Club. We will be back on Thursday. Melissa has sat down with a great Houston preview that you will be able to listen to. I will do something. I think I got an interview. I have to check my DMs. If not, we'll do a mailbag over at Horned Frog Blitz or something like that. Until then, though, we'll talk to you then. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.